Faisal Hoque, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thanks for having me, John.
It is really a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from the East Coast. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about how to transform and lead in the age of creativity, innovation, and sustainability. Now, I suppose some might say, oh, that's just a lot of buzzwords. And I suppose it is. But these are all very important integrated ideas that definitely contribute to and feed off of each other. So we're going to get past the buzzwords, past the tech bro kind of spin on this kind of topic. I really want to dig in. I want to really understand what we can do to lead in this shifting world of work, and what that looks like, how it looks different than perhaps the way organizations have been led in the past. So that's what we'll be discussing today. As we get started, I wanted to share Faisal's bio with everybody. Faisal Hoque is an accomplished entrepreneur, noted thought leader, technology innovator, advisor to CEOs, and the U.S. federal government with more than 25 years of cross-industry experience. He is the award-winning author of the #1 Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller, Lift, the Wall Street Journal #2 and USA Today bestseller, Everything Connects, and many other publications. He is the founder of Shadoka, I don't know if I said that right, Next Chapter, and other companies. And really, I could go on, but I'm going to pause there. Faisal, anything else you would like to share or to highlight from your background or personal context before we dive in?
No, I mean, I think that you welcome me very, very, very well. On a personal note, I'm very much into mindfulness and meditation. We'll talk about that in the context of creativity, and I like to cook. So those are two personal notes.
Very nice, very nice. Let's dive on in. And I think it's interesting. Clearly, you have been a very successful entrepreneur. You've started companies, had very successful companies. You advise, you consult, you do a lot of important work in the space. Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about your own path and trajectory and how you got to where you are today, and then we can launch on into this transformation around what organizations in the modern world of work need from their leaders.
Sure. So you talked about my successes. Along the way, I had many, many failures, because success doesn't come without having failures and learning from the failures. So, I mean, I originally come from Bangladesh. I came to the US when I was in my late teens, started going to school in Southern Illinois University, and then switched to University of Minnesota. And then I built my first product in my senior year. That was in '90s when, Windows was coming out and Apple was kind of dabbling with their, the floppy disk Macs. And the market was kind of iffy during those days, just like it is right now, unpredictable, borderline recession, not too many jobs. So I actually took my product that I built, which was a software product, and I, rather than sending resumes out, I send the disk as an alternative way to people look at my work. And now we are very familiar with, you go to work, you show your portfolio of work, whether you're a coder, designer, whatever it is, you show portfolio author, you show your sample writing, whatnot. I sent out my demo disk, and as a result, midst of that bad timing, I did get 7, 8 job offers before I could graduate from college, and that's how I started my career. And then, I started, I had a bunch of offers from a bunch of Wall Street firms because my product was focused on regression analysis for the market. But I didn't take those. I took a R&D job at a company called Pitney Bowes, which at those days was one of the very high-rising Fortune 500 companies in Connecticut. That's how I started my career. Quickly after that, I ended up going to Dun & Bradstreet, started my first company, got recruited by GE Capital to launch their first e-commerce business, and life was going really well. And then post-GE, I started my next company, and I was doing extremely well. Signed up GE as my first customer. We got a bunch of customers like PepsiCo, not Pepsi, Amex and MasterCard and others, and raised a whole bunch of venture capital fund, and got fired from my own company because venture capitalists was think, didn't think I was growing the company fast enough, even though we had close to $10 million revenue within 12 to 18 months time frame, and I had blue chip customers. So I got ousted, and I was kind of depressed. Sat there and wrote my first book, and in the meantime, the VCs kind of mismanaged the company, and that company went bust. And my argument in my book was that if you don't know about business models, if you don't focus on business models, then the tech stuff really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And the bubble burst. That was the 2000 timeframe. And then I moved on and built pretty successful company. And then a few years ago, and during the market melt, 2008 and 2010, 11, I faced the same adversity just like anybody else. And but I've survived through that, and wrote a whole bunch of books during that time. And 5, 6 years ago, exited my last company and kind of was, thinking of what I should do next. And I thought of like bringing all my expertise and focus on public sector because I wanted to give something back to this beautiful country of ours that has given me so much. So I started working with a partner called CSCI, and we kind of been working in various agencies like DoD, DHS, and others, driving their innovation, process improvement, and better citizen care and defense, utilizing technology. And then midst of pandemic, I wrote Lift, and then I kind of relaunched everything kind of second edition. And now I actually have a third book out called Reinvent, which literally is coming out now as we speak, which also became #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller. And in between, faced an array of adversity, including family health, parental family health. My son, who's 20 years old, who is a cancer survivor, so et cetera, et cetera. So I dedicated, you talked about next chapter. So proceed from next chapter and book all goes to cancer research, especially to bring awareness to multiple myeloma, which is what my son is diagnosed with. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Well, yeah. Excuse me. Thanks for the encapsulation of that. I know we could spend a lot of time just digging into all of that, but I appreciate it. And it's great to provide that context as we think moving forward, because you have that experience, the ups and the downs in different organizations, those that you've started, but also in other corporate roles for other organizations. You've seen firsthand how work has been transforming over the last several decades. And you are a thought leader in the space of looking at this continual transformation and how things are going to continue to evolve into the future. So I want to go there next. And maybe if at a high level, if you can talk a little bit about what you saw in the past, kind of where we're at today and where you think we might be in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of leadership transformation, organizational transformation, shifting transformation of the workplace. And then we can dig in more specifically into creativity, innovation, and sustainability.
Sure. So we can look at it kind of like a three-phase, right? So, when I was part of GE and, pre-pandemic and those kind of large, what I've observed in large organizations, it was very much driven by quarter-to-quarter focus, command control kind of mentality, and very much driven by top line growth, not even so much about bottom line, and not so much obviously focused around people and environment and our world as a whole. And then pandemic happened, and all of those things kind of shifted because we kind of suffered together as a society, right? So we started to see this more collaborative, more sympathetic, more empathetic kind of mindset. And obviously, we also seen a great number of technological shift that kind of brought on by necessity more than anything else. So we kind of are in that phase where we are a little more empathetic, a little more tech savvy, regardless whether we're a technologist or not, and we're a little more quote unquote, environmentally conscious, because whatever we individually do does impact, everybody else as a whole, right? And now we're seeing this, last 18, 24 months, a major boost towards machine learning and artificial intelligence, and both fear and opportunistic mindset in terms of what could those kind of technology can do, in terms of how we work, how we communicate, live, et cetera, et cetera. So these are kind of three phases, right? I mean, we've kind of seen the fourth industrial revolution that actually Lyft. I talk quite a bit of fourth industrial revolution. And then it's kind of, now we're getting into this hyper growth. A lot of debate about, should we have better governance around technology? Should we just let it go so that it does whatever it needs to do? Where do we combine the human machine and create a hybrid model, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that where we'll end up, and nobody knows really where we'll end up, but best case scenario, we become a hybrid, human machine society, right? Worst case scenario, the machine takes over and we all become, like that movie. I can't remember the movie right now.
Like the Terminator, right?
Yeah, or worse, that we are in that some sort of a bubble ship, and we're all getting very lazy, and the machines are keeping us alive.
Oh,
and
Wally.
Wally, right? So those are, reality is probably, it's somewhere in between, right? So hopefully it's somewhere in between. So that's where we are, and then there are a ton of opportunities, but there's also a ton of obsolescence if we are just become very complicit and not pay attention to it, regardless of whatever our profession is and roles are.
Yeah, really interesting. No question that technological advances have dramatically shaped and influenced these shifts that you've been discussing, and the different waves in the Industrial Revolution. At each stage, we've seen different types of technological disruption and advancement that has pushed us forward and kind of re-stacked the deck, right? Reshuffled the deck, changed the player board, whatever metaphor you want to use, and then we're playing the different game. And that's really what's happening right now. It's been happening for a while. For the last couple of decades, we've been seeing this shift, but because of the dramatic increase in processing power in computers and the dramatic decrease in cost for memory and processing power, and because of the rise of smart machines and AI and deep machine learning, and even just over the last 6 months, my goodness, what has come about, this kind of technological disruption is going to completely change the game, and it will require us to rethink how we structure organizations, how we design jobs, in the work that people do, how we lead those people, how we utilize and integrate technology, etc. And it's not going away. So it's not like we can just pretend like it's not happening. Like, we either figure out how to work within this new context, or we're going to become obsolete and irrelevant, and we're just going to fade away to the background. And of course, then there's all these sorts of different societal concerns and ethical concerns that we need to be thinking about as well. So there's just a lot to think about. And that gets us into really what I want to spend the rest of the time talking about: the creativity, the innovation, and the sustainability. Now, obviously, a lot of creativity, innovation, and innovation have driven a lot of these disruptive technological advances that we've been discussing. But we need to do all of this in an ongoing, sustainable, ethical way. And that's the big question: is what does creativity look like? What does innovation look like in the age of generative AI as a tool to assist us in that process? And how do we do this in a safe ethical and sustainable way?
Yeah, look, I mean, first, let's get to a very fundamental human level, right? I mean, the machines are not going to be driven by empathy and ethics, even though you load up every single legal ramification you can find on the planet. There's a humanity that cannot be replaced by any kind of quote unquote artificial intelligence. So that's the first point. The second point is that I think the creativity is still going to be driven off what the basic human elements like mindfulness and empathy and being self-aware and being able to influence, et cetera, et cetera. Because it takes a very a conscious effort and conscious practice to decide who you are and how your actions impacts other people. And that's where ethics gets driven as well, right? So just because I can doesn't mean you should, right? But which requires a conscious practice of holding you back in certain way, right? So I think that element of it is very crucial. And once you have that, then you can apply technology in all sorts of creative way. Like for example, yesterday I was driving. We went away for a few days, and we went to Virginia Beach, and we were driving back from Virginia Beach to Connecticut. And I'm obviously getting a slew of emails and texts and this and that. And I was saying, wouldn't it be nice if I could just say, hey, check my calendar, see whether I'm available, on Monday, and book this meeting, and my AI agent kind of goes and does that, right? So those are helpful way to make you more productive. I mean, I know the phone assistants that we have, it's not there yet. I mean, it's like half of the time it misinterprets whatever you're saying, right? So that's an example of being highly productive, right? Or let's say I'm obviously you mentioned my company Shadoka, we build software, and we've been dabbling with generative AI engine where it said, okay, I want to do a market segmentation, or I want to do a particular go-to-market strategy for my customer, or I want to create a roadmap for my DoD customer. Tell me what's out there and pull it in, right? So those are so you can be very creative in terms of utilization of technology. Or when I'm writing, right? I'm saying, okay, I want to write about spirituality as an example, right? And it's nothing to do with technology; it's self-awareness. And give me some example of what are the best spiritual practice of the best leaders out there, and show me their path. And I want to incorporate that in my next blog as an example. Right? So these are very example. These are very I just gave you 3 examples of productivity strategy and self development. At different roles, right? One as I'm an executive, 2 I'm providing service, and 3 as an author. And these are very helpful ways to be creative utilizing technology. But creativity, innovation does not come without creativity, and creativity does not come without being mindful and self-aware and whatever you're trying to do, having that awareness that is going to impact somebody else, right? And then sustainability comes from establishing systemic way of applying or scaling that innovation and tracking the impact of that innovation if you want to do it in a large scale, not just for yourself, right? So that's the connection between creativity, innovation, and sustainability. So it starts with mindfulness. It in middle your application of things that are already exist, and then to make it sustainable, you have to apply systemic implementation that has the ability to impact a large audience, not just yourself, right? So that's how I kind of break it down and look at things from different perspectives.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. And I totally agree. I think that the mindfulness, the presentism, the, making sure that you're in the moment, that all of that and being able to foster that, that helps you create the environment in which creativity can occur. And creativity, broadly speaking, right? We're not just talking
Yep.
about a musician or an artist or
Yeah,
whatever. We're talking about any form of creative thought
of
and
course.
expression. And that happens as we are one in the moment with ourselves, we're mindful, we're present, etc. And the reality is the world we're in, it's so easy for all of that to just go away. Like we can just be running constantly around like chickens with our heads cut off, constantly looking at a screen, constantly doing this thing, that thing, and running from one thing to the next. And so we have to very purposefully and intentionally carve out time for ourselves and get in the habit of taking, the opportunity to do mindfulness practices that will help us to foster the creativity, which ironically, taking time away from productive things can actually make you more productive, because it helps you reset your mind. It helps you see things in new ways. It helps you be more creative, helps you innovate. And so you can do things better, more efficiently, more effectively, etc. And ultimately you can be more productive. There's lots of research on flow states and all of that kind of stuff as well, that all feeds into what we've been talking about. And so I think just really, really, it's important as leaders in the modern world of work, in the modern age, to get past the command control, like you were talking about earlier, to move into a space of empowerment, to move into a space of creating an environment where people are not only, given permission, but encouraged, actively encouraged, to pause and to take breaks and to practice mindfulness and to foster that creative and innovative environment. I'm not sure there's many more important things modern leaders can do
No,
than to foster
look,
that within teams.
for sure. And look, I mean, if you want to, along with mindful, I mean, it's like there's actually now studies, science that shows that slowing down makes you more productive, right?
Yeah.
When you're running around, you're making too many mistakes, you're making wrong decisions, you're agitated, you're not really influencing or inspiring and encouraging the people that you're leading, right? So, and it's a practice, it's a daily
Mm-hmm.
practice. So how many meetings you schedule, how much, before you speak, are you really taking the time to think about what's about to come out of your mouth, right? So, and empathy, by the way, is the same way. It takes a conscious effort to practice empathy because we're self-preserving species. We think about ourselves before we think about somebody else. So it takes a conscious practice to think about other people. And why do we want to think about other people? Because if you can't think about other people, you cannot create environment of
Yeah.
encouragement, influence, and inspiration, let alone create an environment of sustainability. Because if you are not empathetic, how can you think about what's going to be the long-term impact? Because long-term impact is not instant gratification. It's not about instant gratification, right? So, I mean, and we rushed. I mean, as a society, we are very much, soundbite driven, very
Mm-hmm.
much
Mm-hmm.
driven by whatever fad and that's trending, and we just rush things through without really thinking about it. I mean, you can argue, like this is a controversial topic, but you can say, okay, did the EV market really making our climate sustainable? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
look at the impact of those batteries, we're not quite there yet. It's a
Mm-hmm.
good effort. It has awakened a consciousness that we need to protect the world, but I don't know whether saying that every EV car is going to help us to protect the environment, right? So you have to go beyond just the basic notion of what's really impactful and think through and but that takes conscious practice, right? So
Yeah.
so
Recognizing the complexity, the
yeah,
nuance,
yeah,
and moving towards sustainability is always important.
yeah.
Faisal, this has just been a great conversation. I know at the time
Sure.
I need to let you go here in just a minute, but before we wrap things up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Look, I mean, you can find me on the internet. Obviously, FaisalHoque.com is my website. There's all kind of resources out there. As I said, my books are not for commercial reason. All proceeds goes to cancer research. So feel free to, anybody out there, feel free to take any of this and use it any way you like. No bones from my part. And my final last word is that. Practice mindfulness, practice empathy, practice creativity, and that's the way to go forward.
Wonderful. Faisal, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Faisal and his team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you